Welcome back to the Zach Djellab channel, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys are doing very well at home. Joining me today, two very different faces to Patrick and Henry. First off, Michael McCubbin, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks, Zach. How are you?
Not too bad. I can't complain. Alice, how's things?
Yeah, things are really good as well, thanks.
Amazing. Congratulations on hitting 100,000 subs as well.
Very,
very impressed. If you guys aren't already subscribed to Alice, make sure you check her out with her links in the description, and Mikey over on Sky Sports as well. As you guys can see by the title of this video, something a little bit different. Of course, we're talking about January transfers. It is still January. We've got about... I didn't realise this. The window ends, by the way, on the 3rd of February.
Yeah,
weird. I did not know that. It blew my mind.
I'm not a fan of that.
So we've still got about, 2 weeks, just over 2 weeks until then. And so this week, I feel like we've really seen the rumour mill spinning. We've seen a lot of different names linked to different places. And actually, just before shooting this, we've had one confirmed of a player going back to his club. And I'm sure we will talk about that in a little bit of time. But one that broke yesterday, or seemed to break yesterday, Zubimendi. We're going to be talking about all these players and giving them a score as well, what we think of the transfer, A, B, C, D. But Zubimendi being linked to Arsenal. Alice, Arsenal at the moment have injuries kind of in their front attacking areas, but they're being linked to a DM. Does that make sense?
I think it does make sense because he's not coming till the summer if this deal is done, and Partey's going to go in the summer, Jorginho's going to go in the summer. So I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of Zubimendi. Liverpool wanted him, very good DM because he's not just good off the ball at winning back the ball, but he's very good on the ball, very good under pressure, breaking the lines, good at passing it. My biggest question mark around it is I still think Declan Rice, it might be an unpopular opinion, is better as a 6 than an 8. And I do think, does that mean Declan Rice is going to be the 8? And I always think, do Arsenal need to look at that left centre mid and put Declan Rice as the 6? But I guess, they need depth there in the 6 role with Partey and Jorginho do leave. So I do think when you think of long-term squad planning, it's a very good deal to do ahead of time, but it's not what they need right now, right this second. And I think if he's coming in the summer, those two are leaving, and you can get him for 51 million, I believe his release clause is, then that's a really good bit of business because he is a top player. Obviously played with Mourinho before. But when I look at Arsenal right now, I think if there's an opportunity for them to get a striker or even a left winger in, they need to go and act upon that. I know there's probably going to be better options in the summer. I know there's always that talk of Isak being the dream, but he's going to be 150 million at least if you want him. It's going to be... Sure. It'll be
breaking the bank numbers. Yeah, it's British records.
It's
really
difficult to go out and get a top striker right now, but I'd say I'd give the signing pretty much a solid B. I'd give it a solid B. But they need someone now in January that's going to boost the attack. And when you see Omar Marmoush about to go to Man City, I do think, should Arsenal be looking at that?
I mean, his fee's something about, isn't it it looks like it might be 70 million euros in the end for Omar Marmoush, which is a lot of money. But Mikey, Arsenal's attack. They've just seen Gabby Jesus now out with an ACL injury. It's going to probably keep him out until the end of the season. We don't know when Saka's fully going to come back fit. And again, me and Alex talk about this off camera, but you don't want to rush him back, do you? Especially for someone who's suffering his first big injury. And so it really leaves their attack bare at the moment. Is there anybody you think they should be going for? But mainly, I guess, why haven't they acted already?
Well, I think it's telling with Arteta's most recent comments that he was before the Jesus injury, we had transfers in mind. Those haven't changed since the Jesus injury. I expect they haven't changed since the Saka injury either. It does feel like, maybe we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. For all the... for all the panic that seems to be kind of spreading among Arsenal fans and goading from opposition supporters around, them not, building on those last 2 seasons under Arteta and, falling away in the title race this year. This is being recorded as well before the North London derby, so who knows what happens there. Maybe, Arsenal will be 1 point closer to Liverpool after their draw with Nottingham Forest. Maybe they'll have fallen further away, but at least with the Zubimendi signing, that there's a clear sign that Arteta is very much calling the shots at Arsenal, and there is there is still a lot of long-term planning going on there. Last summer, I guess we did see that a bit with the signings too, in terms of bolstering the back line. So at least there isn't a sense of panic at the club. Clearly, like I think there is so much confidence in Arteta that Arsenal could finish third this year and he would still have full backing in the summer, and you would expect that by the summer they would get an attacker in, right? Like, or at least one.
They're after Williams, aren't they? He's
They probably would still, like, in some ways they depending on what Liverpool do this summer, Arsenal may still go into next season as being title favourites, because I think City still have tons of rebuilding to do. Arsenal's squad is still relatively young compared to their rivals. So yeah, I think the Zubimendi deal is pretty amazing. Like, this is someone who rejected Barcelona, he rejected Liverpool, of course. Man City were interested in him too. So if that does go through, then it's a real sign of Arteta's pulling power. We were kind of discussing yesterday, I think, like, the fact that former teammates in Marino and Ødegaard are there. Arteta is Basque as well, obviously former Sociedad player himself. Like, I think that's a big factor in Zubimendi. I think the fact that he I think it being a little bit of a home away from home, I think is great for him, because clearly he has so much kind of he has such a connection to his home. So I think that is a big factor.
All they need to do,
sorry, on.
I say all they need to do is bring in Isaac and Oyarzabal, and the whole
that's
it. There.
That's it. I mean, and Oyarzabal would be a pretty good option for Arsenal. I think he would be good. Probably maybe a little bit old for the profile player they go for, at least the profile attacker they go for. But yeah, it is. But it is a problem. Like, they need someone who can back up Saka. Well, at least with Nwaneri out at the moment. Mm-hmm. They need that. They probably need an upgrade on the left wing. They probably need a striker as well. Although I do feel like it's inevitable we'll see Havertz have another purple patch and everyone will kind of forget about his current form. But I do think they need a number 9 in the long term at least. But I guess what it is like, is it worth Arsenal spending massive amounts of money in this January to get an attacker in just to boost what could still be a failed title attempt? Or do they wait until the summer where they can actually be a little bit more sensible? Like, the only options seem to be like, I don't know, like maybe there's a loan option in the market. Yeah. I suggested Arda Güler, that's been talked about a bit, but realistically, is that going to happen? Real Madrid fighting on two fronts this year, like... It's a difficult time of the year to try and get like a signing who's going to boost you, especially when you're like 6-7 points behind in the title race.
Yeah, and obviously it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to get him. Yeah. The other side of it is this might be Arsenal's best chance to win a Premier League in the next 5 years, right? Like, we can only imagine that City will come back stronger next season. You'd expect
a bit.
With them, Liverpool probably going to only get better. Who knows what Forest's arc is going to be now with how things are going. You hope Chelsea are going to be getting better, and so it kind of feels like if there's going to be it's mad if the squad were doing what they were doing last season, they would be clear above the favourites, wouldn't they? However, that's not quite working out for them. But yeah, we'll see. I'm sure they're going to be linked to a few more forward debates.
Are we giving Zubimendi a B then? Should we?
I think Zubimendi's. I think it's good business to get it done now, early, way before anyone else.
I think it's like a top B because of the player he
maybe
is.
100%. I think it's going to be interesting what happens then for midfield in the summer as well, along with the attack. The mad thing is that I thought City would jump in. Like, I know, obviously, especially maybe they're thinking, look, if we're going to get him, we need him now, not in the summer.
Yeah.
And so we're not.
He was never going to leave midway through the season, was he?
Exactly, and so maybe they thought, let's not bother then with that. In the end, it does scream. I mean, it's mad to me that Liverpool never managed to then get something like this. If they were so keen on him in the summer, they don't want to do it for next summer, or maybe it is just the Mikel Arteta connection.
I honestly think if Zubimendi wanted to join Liverpool, he would have done it in the summer.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. So yeah, I'm happy with a B. I think that's fair enough. And maybe, you know what? Maybe that improves depending on other signings they make in the summer as well. You might look at that squad and go, now that's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's future-proofing that midfield. I mean, Arsenal, Declan, if they can make Declan Rice and Zubimendi work as a double pivot, that's a world-class midfield, like a really world-class midfield they have, which I don't think you could necessarily say as good as like Partey's performed at points and Jorginho's performed at points. I don't think you could necessarily say that before.
Let's jump over to Chelsea because there's a couple of players we need to talk about rumour-wise. One that was a rumour / now become confirmed. It was all talk about Marc Guéhi. We spoke about him in the last episode. But just before we started recording, Trevoh Chalobah was confirmed to be returning back to Chelsea, being called back from his loan. Firstly, firstly, Alice, what do you make of that again as a kind of ranking towards? It's not necessarily a signing, but it is a player joining back in with the squad. What do you think of Chalobah's return? Because he had a bit of a hard situation, didn't he, at the beginning of the summer? He didn't even get on the pre-season tour. Didn't have a squad number.
Yeah, I think for me, like I've always liked Chalobah as a player. I thought under Poch towards the back end of the season, he was one of Chelsea's better performers, and I think selling him was probably due to FFP because he's impressed me more than Disasi had, Badiashile had. I think he's a good player. You know, he's comfortable on the ball, good at defending, reads the game quite well. So I understand like Chelsea wanted to get him out, but they didn't treat him very well. He'd been at the I don't know, 7 or 8. He'd been there a long time. Young boy. You know, academy player, was one of the better players, I think, under Poch, because the second half of the season under Poch, you sort of picked up a bit and you played a lot better that second half of the season under Poch, and he was one of the players that caught my eye. Actually, you know, he's looking like Chelsea's one of their strongest centre-backs, arguably their strongest centre-back at that point in time. And obviously he's a good player, and I think he's one of those that's a little bit underrated because you hear all these fancy names abroad, and then, I said it in the summer, and I spoke about this with you earlier, I said I'd have taken Chalobah as an extra centre-back at United because we needed 2 centre-back signings in the summer. I said, you know what he brings, he can do it in the Premier League, he is solid. Do you know what I mean? And I think
doing a back 3 as well. I mean, I guess that's because Ten Hag was there at the time, but anyway.
Yeah, in the summer, everyone was like, oh, like Chalobah, no, he's rubbish. And they'd be linking all like these names of players like abroad and stuff. And I'm thinking, have you watched these players play? You know, they got the fancy name. And I think he's one of those players that, you know, with Chelsea, I think I look at Chelsea right now and I think goalkeeper's obviously priority, right centre-back probably a priority, you know, and then potentially a more clinical striker. But there's the depth in the back and the injuries and all of that. And I think from Chalobah's perspective, the way he was treated by Chelsea, it's not a good look. But I think Chalobah coming back to Chelsea, I'd say right centre-back is one of those positions that just could be a little bit stronger.
I guess football's a very fickle sport, isn't it? And very quickly, if he's starting and playing very well, I'm pretty sure all is forgiven. And who knows, maybe a new contract is offered.
It's a massive career opportunity.
Huge. And like he was doing very well at Palace more recently as well. He managed to. I mean, what is interesting from Palace's point of view is they finally got their back. They started the season and the back 3 wasn't really gelling because they were all getting used to this like new formation, new system. Obviously, Chalobah joining, Lacroix joining as well, and this whole new back 3 with Anderson leaving in the summer. But finally, over the last month or 2, they've really got gelling together, haven't they? And they've been getting some results, playing really well, especially those 3 at the back. And then he's gone. I mean, it's not like Palace got money for him or anything like that.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe part of the deal was if a recall happens, you get 2 million or whatever it might be. I don't know. But that's not going to go and buy you a player of Trevoh Chalobah's caliber. What that does mean, or you think anyway, unless something else was to happen, but Marc Guéhi now stays the club captain. I saw a few, weirdly enough, I remember when the Guéhi links were happening, I saw a few Palace fans saying, I don't think Trevoh will go back, but I do think Guéhi might leave to Chelsea. And so it's funny to see it happen actually the other way round. But probably from a Palace point of view, if it was going to happen, maybe, of course, you get a decent amount of money for Guéhi, but you probably would rather it this way, Mikey?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. I think, losing your club captain halfway through the season's massive, and I think the fact that Lacroix has been so good, he has been, arguably at Palace's best player this season, massive fan favourite already. I think that helps to soften the blow of Chalobah leaving. Like Glasner was able to make back 3, kind of makeshift back 3's work last season. I think he'll be able to do the same this time round. They're getting, should be getting Romain Saisin from Millwall as well. So yeah, I think it's still been a relatively positive January for them.
So they probably do need to go and recruit though, surely.
What at centre back?
Potentially,
but it's just, again, it's a bit like finding a striker in this market. It's not the easiest. I know, like City have gone out and signed 2 centre backs this January, but spent a lot of money on them.
Well,
spent a lot of money on them. So I do wonder. Like I think, like I know they're down there, but I do still think Palace are safe. Like I just think Palace are still too good to go down. I do feel like it's worth the risk waiting until the summer.
I think what's interesting as well from Palace's point of view, it was kind of already coming. Like Chalobah, I didn't know you could have this power as the parent club, but Chelsea told Palace you can't play Chalobah in the FA Cup. so that he didn't get cup-tied. I didn't even know you could have that kind of power. But apparently that was the case. And I think once that happened, because you saw Glasner kind of coming out being like, we've been told we can't play him. Once that happened, then surely this was always going to be on the cards. But he's not the only player at Chelsea who's had some links. There are a couple of others. One was Renato Veiga. I mean, wait, quickly. Chalobah back to Chelsea. Do we really want him ranked that? I mean, I guess it just makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a C.
From a Chelsea perspective, yeah.
From a Chelsea perspective, pretty high.
Depth
Palace,
needed,
pretty low.
probably C.
I think C is absolutely fine. Renato Veiga, this one's been a bit of a weird...
Is this off now? Has this is this not happening now?
Not necessarily. So originally, if you guys might live under a rock or whatever it might be, Renato Chalobah, Jesus Christ. Renato Veiga, obviously a player who isn't necessarily in Chelsea's first team, been playing in DM, been playing at kind of left back. I think originally was brought in after Maresca wasn't a huge fan of Ben Chilwell as the kind of cover for Cucurella if needed. Actually, when Cucurella has not been fit or been suspended, he's not been the guy to play in that position. It seems almost like Maresca, I think he likes him, he just doesn't trust him yet, is the situation. Anyway, it then broke that apparently Renato Veiga had told the club or Maresca and stuff that he wanted to leave. He wanted to get out for his chances for the 2026 World Cup, and he wanted to play in his favourite position, which was centre-back. And right now, that left centre-back at Chelsea is Levi Colwill, and I don't really see him kind of slotting into that. It seemed like it wanted to be a permanent as well. It wanted to be a loan move for 6 months, then a permanent transfer. Now, it seems like he's come out and told some of the transfer gurus that actually that's not the case. It just wanted to leave for 6 months on loan, not a permanent transfer, but just to get football.
Makes perfect sense.
Actually, really does.
A swap loan.
Oh my God, it really does, doesn't it?
I mean, right centre-back is what Palace need, but nevertheless.
Sure. I mean, maybe you move Guéhi into...
Guéhi can do it.
What foot is Lacroix?
I'm not...
I can check that
think
out.
he might be right-footed. But I mean, Guéhi is right-footed, but he's just so good on the left. So yeah, you could make it work. But I mean, not necessarily that would Veiga be the right profile, but like the thing is, like, he was being linked with Dortmund, and it's like Dortmund have like an amazing left-sided centre-back in Chalobah just there.
Yeah.
And I know they've got a lot, like they've had to deal with a lot of injuries in the back line this season anyway, but like it does seem a bit of a weird one. It's kind of like, well, you're not going to be an automatic starter in your favourite position at Dortmund either.
Yes. And I mean, they're at the moment, managerial-wise, things might be changing there soon. Who knows? The results aren't going Dortmund's way. No. But that was a rumour that's happening. Do we think... I guess this one we have to talk about a little bit more from the player's perspective, right? Because he isn't playing at Chelsea at the moment, or at least he's not a first-team player. He's getting minutes here and there. He played against Morecambe in the FA Cup. He's featured a lot in the conference, scored a couple of goals actually in the Conference League as well.
But this is the case for so many Chelsea players, isn't it? Yeah. Like I do.
We'll get on to another one, big one.
Like I think this is just this will just happen at Chelsea. You know, if Maresca continues to use the squad in this way, which I think is kind of the only way you can use this squad, because it's so big and there's been so much invested in it, and you need to keep lots of players happy. Like I do think he's done something fairly innovative. I don't know how like sustainable it is, you know, when Chelsea are playing in the Champions League next season and players want to be involved, you know, more. I don't know how long it lasts, but this is just what Chelsea have to deal with, like players, you know,
getting frustrated,
players getting a bit frustrated, like, and for however many players, you know, are happy to wait, there will always be some who get itchy feet.
What do you think of Renato Veiga when you've seen him, Alice?
Yeah, I've watched a couple of your Conference League games, and I've actually been quite impressed with him. Like, I quite like the player that he is. He's quite powerful, good ball carrier, likes to get involved, you know, comfortable getting in the tackle, winning his duels, and I think he's...
You see with a centre-back?
I've not seen him at centre-back. I've only seen him at left-back, and I've only seen him at DM. I feel like if he was going to be a centre-back, he'd be maybe like a left centre-back in a back three. He doesn't strike me as like a... But again, it'd be interesting to see how he does at centre-back, because I think if you look at him as a profile of player, well, he's very powerful, he's very good in the duels, he can defend the wide channels very well. And I've been impressed with him when I've seen him, but... Does he play over Colwill? No, Colwill's been one of your best players this season. Cucurella's, you know, a much different player under Maresca, been really good this season. And then obviously DM, you've got Lavi, you've got Caicedo, you've got Enzo sometimes could play in there. It's very difficult for him when you think of how good Casade's been this season. Lavia, when he plays, is really good. Cucurella stepped up. Cole stepped up. It's very difficult to think, where does he fit in and where's he going to play? But I think he's one of those guys that he could play left back and invert, and he could play DM. And he's obviously a very versatile player, and he's 21 and he's got bags of talent, and he's only just come in. So it's one where I can understand from his perspective wanting to leave, because he's shown in the Conference League there's a decent player there. And I thought when he was linked to Wolves, it would be interesting to see how he does at maybe a Premier League side where he's going to start, because I think he's got the physical attributes to play in the Premier League and technically looks pretty sound. And I think profile-wise it makes a lot of sense, but the players ahead of him at Chelsea are there for a reason. Maresca trusts them, they're better. And I think the biggest criticism Maresca probably gets in games when you're talking Premier League is maybe he waits till the 80th minute to make a sub, and then it's João Felix on, and it's like, could you put João Felix on in the 60th minute? And he's not really getting those minutes. So I think for him, if I was Chelsea, I wouldn't sell him. I wouldn't sell him permanently, because I think profile-wise this could be someone that's good. You've got to wait for him to develop. But I think a loan could be smart. But if you get an injury, it's a whole different situation.
Exactly. Yeah, say Cole does get injured, or we've already seen Badashil out at the moment, or Cucurella get injured, there could be a little bit of trouble. I think it's interesting the fact that, when you mention those substitutes, or when Chelsea say, like when Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo have played so many games and still you're not even seeing Veiga maybe playing as a DM, Chelsea do look at him as a left back. It's interesting looking at him so far, because he made his debut for Portugal in his first team, the national team, whilst being at Chelsea. And he's actually been played as a left centre-back in a back four, and the centre-back in a back three for Portugal so far, against Poland and Croatia. So maybe that's kind of where
he just
it's
loves playing there,
where it's come from, where he's thinking, look, Portugal want to play me there, I want to get more experience there, and that's why I can get a better shot at being there in the World Cup in future. So it makes sense. I do get it on that sense if we're looking at that way. I guess, it does look like if it's going to happen, it will be a loan move. We know Wolves as well also came in for a bid for him already this January, but Chelsea rejected that. But who knows, maybe a loan move will happen now. What would you say ranking-wise for that?
If it was to come up, I don't know.
It's not really a sale, so it's a bit tough to...
I think he'd be very good for Wolves.
Yeah.
Because Wolves going forward are fine. It's defensively.
Yeah,
and centre-back, particularly if he wants to play centre-back, then he gets what he wants, and that's probably Wolves' need, because Kilman went to West Ham and
we'll see.
At the back.
I think that's a good shout. Maybe if it's Wolves, we say
maybe a B.
Low B?
Low B for the player.
I think from Wolves' perspective, it would be a great B plus, probably A maybe. I don't know.
It depends on where he goes, doesn't it, until we can give a full ranking, I guess, on this one. If it's Dortmund, will be interesting if he gets like Champions League experience, if that happens. Okay then, our final Chelsea player for now that we'll talk about is another guy who I guess has been in that kind of conference squad, right? Leading goal scorer for Chelsea, Christopher Nkunku. This one kind of came not necessarily out of the blue. I feel like it's been building up a little while now. And the Christopher Nkunku Chelsea story is one I did not expect to go how it has been when he first joined. I remember when Chelsea kind of had him agreed it was agreed in the January that he was going to join in the summer, if I remember correctly, or maybe the March or whatever it might have been. I remember thinking, wow, this is going to be a really, really good signing. It's going to get Chelsea back to where we need to be. We're just coming off of the Graham Potter season where things haven't gone that well. Lampard's been taken over, still not gone that well, and we've ended the season. But the idea, thinking forward-wise, we've got Nkunku coming in. That's going to be really interesting. Then pre-season happens. He looks fantastic in pre-season. Him and Jackson linking up fantastically well. And not necessarily there being an out-and-out position for him, but it's worth remembering he was playing in the 10 here as a second striker. Cole Palmer hadn't joined Chelsea yet. The whole Cole Palmer Chelsea stuff hadn't even happened. Yeah. And I remember thinking, this is going to work out really well for him. This is really good. Last game of the pre-season, I think it was at Ipswich? No. It was against Dortmund. He does his knee. He has an injury away in America, and he turns out he's out for a long, long time. Obviously, you fast forward, Cole Palmer comes in. If that injury never happened, Cole Palmer may have never joined. So things
it's mad to think that, isn't it? Sliding doors moment.
Well, also, there's the whole Elise agenda in there as well, when Elise was meant to join. But yeah, anyway, you fast forward to where we are now. Nkunku isn't in the starting 11. He's one of those kind of bench options, as we mentioned, that comes on maybe with João Felix with 10 minutes to go, whether that's the right decision or not. And this is a guy that was brought to be not just a player in the first squad, the star player.
Yeah.
He was brought to be the guy for Chelsea, and that's evidently not happened. And I think the way the squad has progressed tactically doesn't include him now, does it, Mikey? Obviously, we've seen now Bayern Munich come in for him. We're seeing possible figures of 70 million euros to get him.
Crazy.
What do you make of it, Maccabi?
Yeah, I don't really get it, to be honest. I think I love Nkunku as a player. Like at Leipzig, he was amazing, and maybe you think like playing under Nagelsmann at Leipzig, the company's not a million miles away from Nagelsmann. I think for all the managerial changes that have gone on at Bayern Munich over the last few years, like the style hasn't fundamentally changed like that much. Like the shape it's generally the same. That the personnel have changed a little bit. Harry Kane being there the last 18 months has changed things a little bit. But I think I just wonder whether like Nkunku's he's not a proper, like he's not a winger. He's not a centre forward. Like I think he really suited playing as an inside forward at Leipzig. Bayern have players who are kind of suited to that already. What does that mean for Musiala's development? Does Nkunku really play on the left of Bayern? I know like in the long term, they need replacements for Sane, they need replacements for Gnabry, they need replacement for Coman as well, although they've kind of got that already with the Elise. But then Musiala's the Muller replacement, isn't he? True. Really? So for that money, I just don't get it. He's 27 now, like he's not super young. It doesn't make tons of sense for me. I think Mathys Tel going in the other direction would be amazing for Chelsea. I don't really get it from Bayern perspective, because Mathys Tel, 19 years old still, somehow can play on the left wing, can play up front. He will be at a great age once Kane starts to decline to take over from him, if he is to be that centre forward. It would be an amazing investment for Chelsea, because even if he doesn't quite work out at Chelsea, you can probably still post a profit on him or get your money back. And Nkunku, it's just a shame, because like you say, he was almost being primed for almost like a Dele Alli-esque position under Mauricio Pochettino. So it's a shame. It's a shame, because it feels like a little bit of a waste. But it just doesn't feel like there's a place for him at Chelsea. Like the Cole Palmer thing is just it's just so massive, isn't it? Like unless he gets a major injury, it's like no one's going to be threatening that position. Not a chance.
What do you think about the money there, Alice? I mean, obviously 70 million euros is about what Chelsea paid for him. It's not a little bit more. That doesn't mean it's going to happen for that price. It could go for a little bit less. But Chelsea will still try and drive a hard bargain for him. We'll get on to maybe Mathys Tel a little bit afterwards. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, from a Chelsea perspective, the player I don't think he wants to be there anymore. He's not one of Maresca's favourite choices, and if you can get back what you pay for him, then considering he's not done much in the last 2 years and he's aged, I think that's unbelievable from a Chelsea perspective, because as you touched upon earlier, it has been a very disappointing signing. It was one when Chelsea signed him where I thought, wow, business, that's good. That's a good signing. I remember watching him in that pre-season, a couple of his games, and I thought, this is some player like Chelsea have got here. And they had that injury, and then, he would have probably been more important under Poch, but then Cole Palmer's come in, and I think, again, his best role would probably be for Chelsea, maybe in that 10, but that's where Palmer's doing it, and you're not going to take Palmer's place, and as touched upon earlier by you guys, he's not a winger. I don't think he's a number 9. I think he's a bit more clinical than Jackson in terms of you get him the ball and he can create space for himself. I would agree to that, definitely. And his finishing is good, and he's very good to create separation, create space, get a shot off. He's quite like that guy, but he doesn't have like that all-round play that Jackson has and adds to your dynamic. And I think, he's not going to get in your best starting 11. And it's like, if an injury happens, you need him. But you've actually had quite a bit of luck under Maresca with injuries in terms of going forward. So it's one of those where I think, even if an injury does happen, you've got so much depth, and then you've got to think of the young players that are going to come in the summer, like Esteval and all of that. If you can get that kind of money from Nkunku, do it. Particularly if Tel goes the other way.
Kendrick Pye is also coming as well. Yeah. I guess also say the worst was to happen, and touch wood it does not. But say Palmer picked up an injury, like at a push, you've got other guys. Like, there is Dewsbury Hall there who can do that. There is, not to the same level, but sure, there is. You could put Sancho maybe in at the 10 if needed, if Nkunku was to move on, I guess. And as for that kind of money, I think Chelsea would probably bite your hand off. I think I do kind of agree with you, Mikey. I don't quite see what Bayern see. Unless they're thinking like, this is the guy, like, remember what he was like at Dortmund, at Leipzig. Maybe this is the same guy that comes back. And there is a potential, and maybe you can kind of shove him onto that left wing and hope it works out. But he's not necessarily the quickest guy in the world either. So it'd be interesting to see what happens from that point of view. And I think in terms of that transfer alone, in terms of Nkunku going to Bayern, for Nkunku, if it means he plays, fantastic. For Bayern, I don't get it.
Sure.
I
haven't really got much of Bayern's transfer business over the last 2 years, if I'm honest. Like, it's, aside from Kane,
Elise as well.
Elise, yeah. To be fair, Elise is great as well. Yeah. Okay, those two aside. I still feel like that. The new regime there is. Well, I say new. It's been there for the best part of 2 years now. Has
Musiala signed a new deal yet? Because there's all that talk about him not necessarily signing one.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a great bargaining. It's a great bargaining tool for Musiala, isn't it? But again, like, I don't know where does Musiala see himself if it's not at Bayern? Like, does he take, like, where's the step up for him? Like, is Man City?
Bring him home.
What, to Chelsea?
Bring him home. He's a common boy.
Yeah, I mean,
Man City are interested. Man City
would be the place, wouldn't it? I guess there's a certain pull for being like, oh, could I be like the KDB or Bernardo replacement? Yeah. There is that, and play under Pep, and Pep is there for the next two to 3 years. Yeah. But I still think it's a risk career-wise for him. Like, I just think like he's primed. He's Germany's star player pretty much at this point. And Bayern is, still an amazing club to play for. You always have a shot in the Champions League. You're always a favourite for the Bundesliga. You got an amazing squad around you. It's a really, generally speaking, is fairly well-run club. So, I don't know whether Man City is a particularly attractive. Like, it's as like Man City is as unattractive as it has ever been as a destination. Yeah. Since the takeover, genuinely, Pep is there for the next couple of years, but like, he's clearly struggling a lot. Like personally, you can see that with the video, with his reaction in videos, etc. Going through a divorce, and also, where Man City are as a club, they still don't know where they're going to be next year or the year after in terms of the hearing on the charges. It's like as unstable as it ever has been. Like, would David Silva or Sergio Aguero in 2010 David Silva or 2011 Sergio Aguero join Man City right now? Like, I'm not so sure. Would Erling Haaland in 2021 join Man City right now? Again, not absolutely sure. So that is one option that is off the table for Musiala.
Interesting. I think that's really
not off the table, but potentially
more
off the
risky.
table. Yeah.
I think then, in terms of, to just quickly go back to Nkunku, give him a ranking, will we say that transfer would be a high D?
For Bayern, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what you look at it from. Really, from obviously for Chelsea.
If Chelsea get that money, A for them, yeah.
But for, I guess it just depends on Nkunku starting.
Sure. It depends on the price as well. Like, if you 70 million, I just can't get behind it for 70 million euros.
If it's Leipzig and Nkunku at Bayern,
yeah.
It's worth it to an extent, but that's a risk.
Maybe they think in the Bundesliga he can do the left wing a little bit better. Maybe because they have the, and maybe that left wing is just almost like a second. Just Musiala. I don't know.
Just go for a proper left winger though.
Yeah,
Rashford would do a better job there, I think. With Kane, I think he worked well with Kane, but it might be an unpopular.
That would be interesting.
That would be interesting. System, I don't know, but I mean, get him online.
Okay, well, let us know what you guys think about all these transfers as well in the comments below. Let's talk about then the Bayern Munich guy who might be going the other way and finally wrap up the Chelsea kind of section. Mathys Tel. Mathys Tel is obviously in links. In terms of fee, nothing. Whereas we've seen 70 thrown about for Bayern, we've not seen anything quite just yet for Mathys Tel. This is somebody who I actually remember bringing him up recently in terms of players who must leave their clubs because he's not playing. He's still not playing. This year, I think, supposedly, in the summer, he was told by a company that You're going to get chances. I'm going to give you opportunities. And up until about a couple of weeks ago, and it might still be the same case, he'd only started 2 Bundesliga games. This is someone who is exceptionally highly rated for teenage forwards in the world. Someone who can play, as we mentioned, on the left wing, through the middle, has a great ball striking about his game as well. One of his goals for Bayern Munich is a fantastic moment on the left wing, cutting in and putting it into the right corner.
He's scored a few clutch goals for them as well, despite his limited minutes.
Has.
He has, lots of last minute winners.
And again, 19 years old, super young. And it's weird. I remember kind of saying he might end up having the Joshua Zirkzee route at Bayern Munich currently, because that feels like what it's going to be. Zirkzee was obviously at Bayern, just not getting a chance, not getting a look in. Finally moved on and had a fantastic season. Now finds himself at Manchester United, and so it's interesting to see these links happening kind of already. I don't think anybody is stupid to know, or I think if you are within if you're looking at footballers who are young as forwards, Mathys Tel's always the name that gets spoken about sometimes, especially nowadays. And I find it very interesting that Bayern would be willing to let him go to bring in someone like Nkunku, who we already mentioned isn't necessarily the kind of someone who's got a role there. So what do you think, Alice, of Mathys Tel, this deal? Do both parties win here? Is this something where Chelsea will be over the moon for him? Tel, if he actually features, will he feature?
Yeah, that's my big question with Tel, is Chelsea have a lot of young talents coming through, as he touched upon. Paez, Esteval also going to come in. It's one of those where I think it's a good and great signing for Chelsea, but you've got Neto, you've got Sancho, you've got all of these players.
Mudryk's still there technically.
Technically, and then Jackson and everything, and Palmer, and it's a bit like he's leaving Bayern for minutes. Is he going to get those minutes at Chelsea? Possibly. But you just don't know. I remember, because he was linked to Man United in the summer, and I remember talking about back in the summer, and I was saying, Tuchel doesn't really give him many minutes, but when he has played, he's got last season, he had quite a good goals per minute ratio, and his ball striking was good, and he looked like one of those guys that, had potential to be, like game winners.
Yeah.
And I was talking about this, and I was talking about game winners, and like certain teams just have players that even if they don't play their best, like Salah can win a game.
Yeah.
And I was saying, I think that's what Arsenal lack, and all of that. And then in regards to Chelsea, you've obviously got Cole Palmer, massive game winner, but when you're going 1-0 up in games and you should be going 2-3-0 up and capitalising on that, and you're not, maybe you need another person in there that actually, with the ball striking, with the finishing, could be that. I think that's potential. He's not quite that yet, but he's one of those players that, with his finishing ability and his ability to get in the right areas, he looks like he could have some very good output in the future. And I think, for Chelsea perspective, it's a good signing, but the question for me is, if he wants game time, I do worry with Chelsea and all the young players, and will he be Conference League rotation? Should he be a bit more patient with Bayern Munich and all of that, and just see it out a bit? And also, just from a Bayern Munich perspective, I don't get particularly selling him just yet. I get if you're not going to use him and there's money there, but I just think there's a good player there, and I wouldn't get rid of him for Nkunku personally.
Interesting. I wonder if you think about the other, like Chelsea have obviously looked for another striker. They were linked to Meridian. That looked like it was going to happen. Obviously, he in the end went to Porto, doing really well. Really well. They were linked to John Duran. Obviously, that didn't happen. He's not done too bad so far this season. But in terms of that striker mould, that looked like they were after a physical box monster who is going to cause issues for defenders physically, can put balls into the air when needed, making sure they can win that. Mathys Tel isn't that.
No.
At least not yet anyway, but that's not part of his game.
Yeah.
What you think will be part of his game. I agree. I think he's got a fantastic finish on him. I think he can. It's one of the things I think Jackson lacks is this kind of clinical finishing / just like brute force finishing. Like John Duran does have that. This ability to just smash the ball. I think Mathys Tel can have a little bit of that. But I do think it's interesting to suddenly go to this guy who isn't. They might look at it almost like an opportunity they thought wasn't going to be possible, and now there it is a possibility. So we've actually got to jump on it and try and make something of it. But I do wonder where it is he's going to feature. Like, okay, maybe they look at it as now without Mudryk, the left wing position is kind of just James Sancho's, and yes, you might be able to shift a Neto out there as well when needed. And so you can have competition there. Jackson, if we're being honest, Marc Guéhi is fine in the Conference League, but he isn't providing much competition to Jackson realistically. And there is a question whether Mathys Tel would as well, if we're being honest. Like, we're not talking about someone who is like, as we've already said, played loads of minutes and proven it, and can show that he can lead a line and can make the right decisions when he can. And we already saw that it probably it's taken Jackson, where we now, a season and a half to get to this position where he at least has this kind of experience behind him.
I also still think that Jackson is fine as Chelsea's starting centre forward.
Yeah, I agree.
I know he's going through a bit of a dry patch at the moment, but he's like he will end this season having had 2 very solid scoring seasons in the Premier League. Had a very solid. Like, he's yet to actually have an actual dud season, and he's still very young. Like, so I think.
But do you think it's better with competition? Like, I always wonder that with strikers. Like, you remember back with Chelsea, like again back in the day, it was Drogba and Anelka, like they were at times they both got pushed.
But that's the thing. There was far more. 2 strikers was still a little bit of a thing. Although I know Chelsea very rarely used 2 strikers back then, but I think there was a point where there was just more possibilities in that sense, and that's why if Maresca was to experiment with using 2 strikers, then Nkunku would have played more for sure, because he could. He is he's so suited to being a second striker. So I think competition obviously is healthy, and I still like it, to be honest. I still like it. I think I don't think. From a Chelsea perspective, I don't think you need to worry about minutes. It's more from the player's perspective, like you say. Is he actually going to get more opportunities at Chelsea than he has at Bayern? Not so sure. At least not in the Premier League. It's a little bit of a funny one all round. I think if Bayern, if Bayern don't. If Chelsea if it ends up becoming almost a swap deal, in terms of the money that changes hands, then I think it makes a lot more sense for Bayern, because you're getting in someone who can really improve the squad now, and clearly Kompany would it wouldn't happen if Kompany didn't want Nkunku. But any other variation, it's a bit weird from at least one perspective.
Okay, and so in terms of the Tel deal alone, we gave Nkunku, I guess, a C. What would we say for Tel?
From Chelsea perspective, maybe B, but from player perspective, I just don't think he's going to get loads more minutes, so maybe a C for the player.
Okay, I'm happy with that. So we'll say high C, if we're mixing that in together, high C, low B, roughly.
For Mathys Tel.
Okay, then let's talk about transfer. I mean, rumoured that looks like it's almost done. I mean, he was linked to a few different clubs. It looks like it's going to be going to Juventus.
I think it's done now.
Kolo Muani.
Yeah,
here we go.
Done.
Here we go, Jesus Christ. I didn't even mean that.
Welcome back to the Fabrizio Romano podcast.
I didn't even mean that. We won't spend, if it's already done, we won't spend too much time on it then, because it is done. But this is someone that was linked to Spurs, was linked to Manchester United as well. Obviously, you two very have a keen interest in Manchester United, I think it's safe to say. What do you think of this? Because I quite like this idea for Spurs. I didn't quite see it, especially with Xerxes and Rasmus Højlund, how it was going to work out for United. But it looks like it's Juventus. What did we think of Kolo Muani, Alice? Either or.
I liked what I saw of him at Frankfurt, and I thought there was a good player there. I didn't think he was worth the money PSG paid. No. Wasn't that convincing. I think they overpaid a bit of Bundesliga tax in terms of the stats. I think can be inflated in the Bundesliga.
Striker tax as well. Frankfurt strikers in
general.
Yeah,
they're great.
They do really well.
Yeah, they do really well with that. But again, when he was being linked around, I thought, Spurs could be good for him. I was thinking Spurs, because I haven't watched loads of Juventus this season, I'm not going to lie about that, but I've watched Spurs and I think, Werner's not particularly convincing.
He's injured as well now.
I know, and people compare him to Werner because good stats in the Bundesliga and not done it, but I think he's more than Werner in terms of the player. And I know people go off the World Cup miss, was it, and stuff like that, but there's a player there that's very good at dribbling.
He was very good at the World Cup aside from that.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing save, wasn't it? So,
yeah. He seems very versatile, and I think Ange would like that, because he could play striker if he needs to rest Solanke, because Solanke runs just like a madman, and they would improve the left-hand side as well. Again, I don't know what his role would be at Juventus. I know they've got Vlahovic. I know they did want Xerxes originally, and he's a very different player to Xerxes because he's quite quick. He can carry the ball. He's quite good out wide. I wouldn't say he's a traditional number 9 kind of player, and Xerxes is a bit of a 9.5. But I'd be interesting to see how he does at Juventus. But I think he's one of those players where you just don't know, because he hasn't been good at PSG, but he was good at Frankfurt, but he was good at the World Cup bar the miss, and he has got some good attributes about him, and I think, you know, the PSG just was the wrong move for him.
Yeah. I think what's interesting as well with Juventus is they're making a few moves this January. They're trying to get in a bunch of players. They aren't far away from possibly having a Serie A title chance, and so improving the squad can definitely give them that. There were obviously links to Arejo at Barcelona. That doesn't quite look like it might happen just yet. It looks like he might sign a new deal. But yeah, I think this is somebody who, I don't know, I thought Spurs would have tried to bite their hand off. Maybe the fee is going to be something ridiculous, and that's why Spurs didn't jump at it. But I thought this was somebody that Spurs could have really done with. Just gives you a backup up top, gives you an option for the left wing where they really do are desperate for it at the moment. Any final thoughts on him, Mikey?
Yeah, I quite like it to you. I'm just quite interested to see how he does under like a manager who clearly wants to work with him. Like he hasn't had that at PSG. Like. And also, like, you know, Motta's inherited a squad, hasn't he, at Juve? And I don't know whether like Vlahovic is necessarily the striker that like he, you know, wants to work with long term. And we saw what he did with Xerxes at Bologna, Motta. So, you know, he has form for taking, you know, like an unconventional striker and getting the best out of them. So yeah, I think, and sometimes, you know, a league can just be a good fit for a player. And yeah, he like, I think, yeah, like you were touching on there, Alice. Like, I think the key is that like Muani is like he's a good footballer. Like, he is a good footballer. So like used in the right system, you know, he doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, a 20 plus goal a season striker if he's able to maximise the output from players around him. And like Juve is a bit of a, I don't know, I think it's a little bit of a gimme at the moment. Like they're obviously in a transitional phase. I think, you know, they should be aiming to be, you know, one of the two favourites next season. But like, it feels like things are coming together like slowly there.
Is it Yildiz on the left wing there?
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone will have a look at him now, if Muani's going if he's going to operate on that left wing, who knows?
Yeah.
From one Frankfurt striker then to another, let's talk about Marmoush, who looks like he's heading his way to Manchester City now. What do we make of that deal, McCubbin? Because again, not to put any discredit on Marmoush, because he has had a fantastic season, but there is something about Frankfurt and forwards.
Yeah.
And we've seen it with Jovic, who obviously went to Real Madrid, didn't quite work out, then went to a few different clubs, not necessarily got back to his Frankfurt heights. Kolo Muani, obviously we just mentioned. Was it?
Who else? Andre Silva had a great time there. Yeah. Did they get massive money for him? I can't remember.
But anyway, point being, forwards at Frankfurt seem to do really well and don't necessarily translate that elsewhere. With Marmoush, this is someone who's going to be joining a Man City side who, I think Savinho seems like he's kind of got a place settled in there. Is it going to be the left wing for Marmoush? Is he going to play behind Haaland? Is he
maybe
taking over Haaland? Like, I don't. What do you think?
I mean, either it's back up for Haaland, or like Pep sees him as someone who can play as one of the two behind him, right?
Yeah.
Like if he can play in KDB or Bernardo's position, that feels like what it is. And yeah, like it's a January price tag, isn't it? It feels a bit panicky, but City, you know, City have like sold very, very well over the last few years. This is the thing, like it does feel like a bit of a panic, but also City can, like, they almost have nothing to lose. Like they're like PSR wise, yeah, they've sold very, very well over the last few years. They can kind of afford to just take a 50 million euro punt on someone. So I don't mind it in that sense. But yeah, like 1.5 very good seasons from a 25-year-old forward. It's not. Yeah, it feels like a Man City. I say this on, I think, the lowdown this week. It feels like a Man City signing from like 10 years ago, when they were kind of in that in-between phase between Mancini and Pep. Like they took a fair, you know, few punts. Well, I don't. What's his name? Who was Wilfred Boney? That's what reminds me of somehow. Okay. But I mean, probably an unfair comparison, but nevertheless, like, yeah, someone who's having a really good time of it at the moment. But like, who knows? Maybe Pep's got a plan for him. I'm sure he does. Like otherwise, they wouldn't be going for him.
What do you make?
What
would you give like the ranking of the transfer then if you had to? Because like this is someone who he is versatile. There are several positions he can fill in. If anyone gets injured, like there is that thing where like if Haaland picks up an injury, like what do they do?
Yeah.
They think Bernardo Silva back up top. Like how does this work here? So they've got backup there. I mean, the Alvarez selling wasn't maybe the best point, but the player wanted to go, so they've kind of now replaced that guy. But from Marmoush's perspective, is he going to start? Like, I don't know if he starts on the left wing.
Is he rushing the move?
Yeah, true. Like he's got another 6 months left.
I thought he'd wait till the summer because he's on fire at Frankfurt. I thought, do you know what? Like City, I get it. But I'm like, you don't know what's going to happen with City in this whole case, FFP. They could get points such and they could get relegated. Wouldn't you want to wait till the summer till you've got more teams and then you can think, what's going to be the best fit for me? Because I like what I've seen of Marmoush. He looks like a very good player. The stats are just outrageous. But I think sometimes with the Bundesliga, you have to take stats with a bit of a pinch of salt. But like you can't be a bad player to get those kind of stats. They're outrageous. And he's someone that can play left wing, striker, could play on the right. And he's different to Haaland because Haaland's more of a goal scorer. He's in the box, whereas he's the kind of guy that can drop deep, that could link the play, that can be more versatile and have, he's not going to score Haaland level goals, although his output is really good at the moment. But like he's someone that influences the whole game more, and maybe Pep wants a different dynamic or something. But it's a difficult one because I'm like, he doesn't start over Haaland probably. You've got Kevin De Bruyne, Foden, who I think do their best role sort of in the 10. So you're thinking left wing, but surely they'd want someone that is an out and out
like
specialist.
Who's that guy, right?
Yeah, specialist left winger. So like I have a few question marks around it from maybe Marmoush's perspective. Is he potentially rushing it? And also he was a player that Tottenham were looking at a year ago, and I remember talking about that and I was saying, well, he's only really been good for about 6 months. He's a late bloomer, but he's been really, really impressive. It's that move to Frankfurt that's got him looking good. So it could be the Frankfurt striker thing that's the biggest risk, but I like the player. I think he's a really good player, and I think he could do well in the Premier League, but I think he should just wait to the summer. I do.
Yeah, there is something, I guess, for him maybe that it's a kind of now, like a now or never kind of situation. If you don't join now, City won't be in for him. But I was thinking I thought Liverpool might inquire about him. Like I think with the way Liverpool, I guess this might have been more under Klopp, and who knows maybe what Slot's proper future for
so much on attackers in the last few years. Unless they saw him as the striker, I don't think there's a place for him on the left.
I think
there's
it'd be
not a place for him on the right.
As the striker, but it doesn't look like it's going to be either of them. It's going to be at Manchester City. Another one who it's worth talking about because God knows where he's going to end up, and then we'll rush through a couple of others as well. As we've got two United fans here. Marcus Rashford. Alice, talk to me about Senor Marcus Rashford. What do we think? Obviously, he's not going to be is he going to be at the club at the end of Jan?
I don't think so. I'm David Ornstein said he didn't think so, and I feel like David Ornstein's going to know maybe a bit more than me about what's going on behind the scenes. I've got mixed thoughts because I do really like Marcus Rashford, and I think he is a bit of a scapegoat when things go wrong. Maguire was 2 years ago. Look at Maguire now. As soon as things go wrong, it's Marcus Rashford's fault. And I think our fan base has almost underrated him as a player because he got 30 goals 2 seasons ago under Erik ten Hag. He carried us on his back. He's had 20 goal seasons under Ole. And, I think there is question marks under Ruben Amorim, his system. How does he fit? Ruben Amorim took 60 minutes to say he's not my striker. Yeah. Rashford is best on the left wing, but when he can sort of be inside a little bit rather than the touchline. And he suited Ollie Ball, the counter-attacking. And I think, for me, I'm at the point with Man United where, we need just to back the manager. If Ruben Amorim says, you know what, I want Marcus Rashford gone, I'm going to back Ruben Amorim on that. Do you know what I mean? I like Rashford. I think he's better than Anthony. I think he's better than Garnacho. I'd love it to work at United. I really would. And I think he's one of those that will leave United and we'll all be saying, oh, look how good he is now. Yeah. And it's like, because we do that with many.
Always happens.
And
Jadon Sancho.
And it's frustrating, but I think you have to just back what the manager wants. So for the sale perspective, it kind of makes sense. If the manager wants that, the wages, I think PSR is something that we're going to be looking at. But club-wise is interesting because, I'd love to see him at Barcelona. I would love to see him at Barcelona. I think Flick is more counter-attacking than previous Barca managers, but it's just like less possession, tiki-taka.
Yeah.
I think I'd love to see him at Barcelona. I haven't seen much of Milan under the new manager, but there's talk of him going to Milan, and they do look to be going well.
Will he start over Raphael there, though?
Does he start over Rafinha at Barca or like?
True. He definitely doesn't.
I don't know whether I don't know any club that like
he starts.
He's looking like that are looking at him. I don't think he's an automatic
starter
anyway. Like Dortmund, more
They're not the other
possibilities.
two, are they? They're not the other two, really.
They're not.
Or how their seasons are going.
No,
Even AC Milan.
Dortmund there would be more opportunities for sure, but yeah, like Milan, but yeah, I think Leao could probably do with some competition, and also like he has played all right on the right in the past, so like maybe there's an option there, but again, like Barca have Yamal, Milan have Pulisic. I don't think he gets in. He starts over either of those on the right, so. Yeah, it's a difficult one. It almost feels like the perfect storm for United would have been actually, you know, Rashford really falling out of favour last summer and getting a move, and like the perfect situation would have been
Ten Hag doesn't sign a new deal.
Ten Hag doesn't sign a new deal.
Amorim
comes in last summer. Jadon Sancho, perfect for Amorim's system, and he decides that Rashford leaves. That's the perfect scenario, but obviously that's
we don't live in a perfect world.
We don't. It's now 2025. So I don't know. Like maybe Milan feels like the most likely at the moment, and probably the best. For some reason I just don't see Dortmund making it happen. Although Marlen's left now, maybe Dortmund would be good.
We'll see. Yeah. Might end up being a little 6-month loan before a permanent move in the summer, I should say. I'm going to go through a couple of ones really quickly, and we just give our quick thoughts to them. Supposedly, Liverpool have rejected a bid from Saudi Arabia club Al Hilal for Darwin Núñez. Darwin Núñez isn't liked on the slot. It isn't. He isn't. He's not the guy there. Maybe he sees him as the kind of backup option, and he doesn't feel like Liverpool have enough backup options for the kind of forward role, especially striker role. When Jota's injured, and we know his injury record isn't amazing. Obviously, we saw him score a goal yesterday at Forest to keep it level. But when he's injured, then they haven't really got anyone else to play that striker. Is that probably the reason? 'Cause otherwise, surely they sell Núñez, right, Mikey?
Yeah, I mean, if they get a good price for him, I'm kind of amazed that. I almost can't believe that story that they rejected 70 million.
That level's probably more rubbish.
There's also the small factor of like, does Darwin Núñez want to go to Saudi Arabia at the age of 25? Like, I think it's a really premature move, and like there's no guarantee that he can like take a couple of years there and then just like sign for another top European club. Like it's a big career move for him. So yeah, like I think if they can get like even if they make a small lot on Núñez, like slots there to stay. Like if they can take that and reinvest it in a 60 to 70 million pound striker, which is what they're going to be doing, I think, in the next couple of years, then I think it makes a lot of sense. But it's just who's going to pay that money? Who's not a Saudi club? It's it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to see right now. It almost feels like a loan is more of a realistic possibility if he's going to stay like in England or stay in Europe.
Who's Atleti's striker nowadays? Still Griezmann? Well,
Griezmann's at number 10, and it's Sorloth up top.
I don't know. I feel like the La Liga beckons for Darwin, but I don't quite know which club it would be.
Almeria, didn't he?
If it wasn't for like Real Madrid, aren't going to buy him. Barcelona aren't going to buy him. Atleti aren't going to probably.
He's the next Sociedad man.
Maybe, maybe either that or some sort of Serie A club takes a punt. What do we think about this one then? West Ham supposedly interested in signing Andre Silva. Funnily enough, we mentioned them earlier about Frankfurt strikers. West Ham need a striker, don't they, Alice?
Yeah.
Who do you think? Like, do you think? Well, Silva might not be the man, but is there anybody out there?
Silva screams like a West Ham dud striker, doesn't it? Like he's like the fact that he's been at like he's not like made it at like at least a couple of clubs.
Milan,
West Ham. That just feels like such a bad move. But maybe that's just like. Maybe I'm being overly flippant there. Like
they seem to do that a lot. They were linked to who was it? El Wahi, who's at Marseille as well. He's been a bit like hit and miss as well. They just they need to go for someone I feel like that's in form, that is firing, that also wants to go to West Ham. It's like they need to find someone
tough criteria.
It's tough, but like they picked up Kudus, who was a good player in the Eredivisie that's gone. They need someone that is in form, and then West Ham is that step up. I feel like.
Yeah, playing for a lower league club that can then use West Ham as a stepping stone. Though West Ham, I feel like, don't like to be used as a stepping stone. That's the funny thing. Like they will.
It's going to be really hard to get Kudus out of there.
Literally, it's going to cost you like 80 million for him. It's ridiculous. Another one here, really interesting. We spoke about Milan a few times. Supposedly Newcastle are looking at Fikayo Tomori. I quite like the sounds of that.
Yeah,
I do like the sounds of that. I think Fikayo Tomori at AC Milan so far this season hasn't necessarily been at the heights of what he has been in Milan. If he's ever, I felt like the Euros, if he was ever going to get a call up for England again, or I can't remember if he has had a cap or not, but say if he was going to get into the England team, that was going to be his best opportunity. Didn't happen in the end. Gareth Southgate picked Marc Guéhi, obviously actually was very, very good at the Euros. Good decision. Do you think a move to Newcastle could do this? Like Tomori was someone who, again, he's played huge games in the Champions League. He's captained Milan. Newcastle are at least looking for depth now. Like I know Fabian Schär is fine, like he is fine, but their centre back of Botman, who's now finally back, which is fantastic. But do you think they could look then, for a Tomori, Mikey, as a guy to? Would it be a starter? Would he be a bench player?
Yeah, I think he's. Yeah, I mean it's. I mean, who like it's Sven, when fit, it's Sven Botman and Fabian Schär still. I think Tomori is he'd be great, but like what he plays on the left for Milan, doesn't he? Of the back two,
but he grew up playing on the right as well.
Yeah, so I think like Newcastle really need to invest in that back line, don't they? In terms of centre backs, the injury problems they've had over the last 2 years can't be ignored. Like I think it's great. As for England, I think you'd hope that Tuchel maybe doesn't discriminate as much against players who aren't playing in the Premier League as Southgate did. So I think wherever if he's playing in a decent team and he's in good form, then you'd hope that Tomori would get more of a look in. Nevertheless, the Premier League is it is a stronger league than Serie A. So if you're doing it at a Newcastle side which is challenging for Champions League in the Premier League rather than a Milan side which are have fallen off a bit in Serie A, then you're obviously going to have more eyeballs on you. It's going to be more positive for you in that sense. So I think Newcastle it's the kind of move that makes a lot of sense for Tomori actually. Like returning to the Premier League in your prime years, the space isn't there at one of the elite clubs. Newcastle is as good as you can get really. Playing under Eddie Howe, who has proven himself to be an amazing defensive coach these days. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, well guys, there we have it. I'm going to throw one final question to you guys, and I'll give you a second whilst I think of my player as well. What is one transfer that is going to happen that no one can see happening just yet in January? Ooh. Is there any move that you think could happen on that sense? I'm going to say one, and they don't actually have to be that believable whether they actually will. It's just a fun thing. Garnacho will leave Manchester United.
Go to Napoli.
Yes.
It could happen.
Yes, that's my one for you. I will... keep talking whilst you think.
Well,
of anyone.
I mean, the fact Napoli is so tantalising. They've got that money from Kvaratskhelia. It's such a that's one of the maddest January transfers I can remember.
Arsenal need a forward as well, so maybe there's something there that's going to happen that no one can quite see just yet.
Arsenal.
Osimhen to Arsenal from Mikey.
I wouldn't be shocked if there's something happens deadline day for Osimhen. I wouldn't be shocked.
He has a 60 million clause still. I think he did come out and say he's not going to move in January. He loves Turkey, he loves Galatasaray, but he's always going to say that, isn't he? He's never going to be I'm off, lads.
It's a loan. It's a loan at Galatasaray.
Yeah,
as well,
it's a loan.
Right?
So
do Napoli Napoli aren't under pressure to sell at this point, probably not.
Okay,
do you know what? I think Sesko to Arsenal. They might go back in for him if they can get him.
I like that, especially after that worldie of a goal he scored. He's in the headlines again, isn't he? Well, guys, let us know what you think in the comments below on all these transfers and what random transfer do you think will happen this January, and let me know your rankings as well for the ones that we spoke about in there. Alice, thank you so much for coming on the channel. If the people at home want to check you out, where can they go?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zach. Alice Talks Football if you want Man United content, just talking about rumours and stuff. And then Aquila Football is all football content, match reactions and more.
Fantastic. That'll all be linked down below as well in the description. Michael McCubbin, where can they see yourself?
Just every Thursday on Sky Sports Premier League, The Lowdown. the YouTube channel, not the actual TV channel.
Soon come.
Yeah.
Soon come. You're on Sky Sports every now and again. You're on Sky Sports News every now and again.
Very rarely these days, but
There we have it.
Doogie's on there a lot, so
Indeed
go check
he
him
is.
out on there. Yeah.
Indeed he is. If you want to see the boys, check them out there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing as well. Like the video. We'll see you next week. Bye.